Good evening. Stand for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Thank the veterans and their families for their sacrifice. So, first on the agenda tonight is, with the help of the attorney, I know there was some controversy over the backyard livestock, and so put together a packet that would be an ordinance change, ordinance O-21-09, and basically this would allow for as small as a half acre, but there would be stipulations, and this would be a provisional type of agreement between the city and the landholders, so that they could apply, a lot like applying for a variance on their land, and then once they met the criteria, which this states things such as setbacks, how far the housing for chickens, and in particular, how far it has to be from the property line. I believe in that case it's like 35 feet from any property line, and they're a certain size based on the number of livestock, and but if you would be qualified for a half acre, then it would be up to 6 chickens on that piece of property, but it doesn't, using that same scale, you couldn't say, well, now I want to have some ducks as well, because that same half acre cannot apply to multiple types of livestock. And obviously then you've got an exercise area for all of these particular ones. Rabbits in particular need 12 square feet for exercise, and their housing is 4 square feet or 16 feet of space for them to be housed. So I'd like to think that this gives opportunity, but it maintains some control, and it is being provisional. It follows the property owner, not the property. So if that individual would sell the property in 5 years, the provisional agreement would go away. But provided everyone with a copy. If anybody has any questions on it, this isn't chiseled in stone, but I think it allows for some flexibility, and but maintains some order and some control over what could be chaotic.
I have a couple of questions. So, first question is, what about the people that currently have livestock? I know there's people that already have the chickens, they already have rabbits, they already have ducks or whatever. Will they be kind of grandfathered in, or are we going to enforce the ordinance and make them get rid of it? Or will they be able to apply for the conditional use permit? And I guess my second question would be, would the conditional use permit allow the city to take a look at the situation and give them an opportunity to let the neighbors know that what they're doing with the sign in the yard
Okay.
and all that. So I just.
First question is, this ordinance, and it is pretty much, not counting this ordinance, the ordinance that is in effect right now is the same ordinance that, the one that was passed, part of the UDC, June of last year,
Mhm.
is the same stipulations that have been in effect since 2007. So there is no grandfather in, because technically they were breaking the rules at
Right.
that point.
Right.
So, as far as the grandfathering, no. They would have to apply, and they would have to adhere to the setbacks, the size, and everything. So, but right now, it's set up that if you're breaking the rules right now, and there have been citations given out for having chickens where they're not zoned for it, and they've already been cited for that. This would give an opportunity for them to apply, but if, for instance, they have 12 or 18 chickens, and this ordinance says they're only allowed 6, then they would have to find a home for the other remaining chickens. Your second question is, again, refresh my memory. Second question.
The question was about the process by which it's approved.
Right.
And I think it's appropriate for me to jump in real quick. The answer to that question is yes. It does not come before the council, so the council is not going to be inundated and voting on conditional use permits all the time. It's something that's handled by the zoning administrator at the administrative level. But one of the requirements that we specifically put into this was that an application must be accompanied by a signed notarized statement from any and all adjoining property owners. So consenting to the placement. So basically, if somebody objects, you can't submit a complete application.
So we got the property owner to the north, south, the east, and the west. I'll have to sign and say you can have chickens.
Yep.
Notarized, so that, it's a written agreement that I have no problem with it, and it's notarized. So, but if you get on 3 sides and somebody's in front and they say, I don't want them, it puts the onus on the property owner to get their neighbors to agree. And in most cases, I guess it's kind of been in the past, like you said, there are people that have. It's been kind of a live and let live situation. That doesn't make it legal. It doesn't mean that, that they have been following the ordinance that has been in place since 2007. So it's not like this is a new thing, but, this is a way to allow for, if someone wants it, and if it's 30 people that apply, and they get the consent from their surrounding neighbors, and there's 30 people that they have it, like I said, 5 years down the road they sell, then that agreement is null and void. I think this also gives the city the opportunity or the ability to police it from time to time. Am I correct on that?
So 2 things. Let me just be clear. The determination about neighbors and whether neighbors are okay with it is made at the time of the application. Once a special use permit is issued, that person has the right to keep livestock or chickens. And new neighbors coming in and new neighbors having a difference of opinion, unfortunately, they buy taking knowledge of all conditions, including the issuance of the permit. So it's not like, the sort of Damocles that's constantly hanging over your head if you got new neighbors coming in. So I want to clarify on that point. Yes, this does give the ability of the city to inspect from time to time to make sure that everybody is in conformance or compliance with the rules. I believe the code already provides us that authority, but we did clearly put that in here.
Mayor, my only concern here is, I understand now they can't have chickens anyway, or livestock, but I didn't know if there was any wiggle room on the section 1A, minimal lot size, because I think in some cases, people could probably meet the setbacks and those requirements from their neighbors in here, that's in this ordinance, but don't quite have half an acre. It might be close to half an acre, but not exactly half an acre. So that's my concern. I mean, I know some people right now that doesn't have half acre, that probably is already in compliance other than that one section.
So the answer to that question is, there's two ways to address that. One, if the council wanted to, this could of course be amended, like the mayor said, it's not set in stone, but based upon feedback in the previous iteration, I think one half acre was the number. But that number, frankly, any number in the code can be subject to a variance. But a variance is a different procedure from a special use permit. Variance has to come before the council. So, there is a possibility that that number could go down on a case-by-case basis, but I would advise everybody, when you adopt an ordinance, that needs to be your general rule. And if you need a case-by-case exception, there is an avenue for doing that.
Well, I share the same sentiment about the lot sizes, Councilman Venable. You know, if you look at the lot sizes, from any of these new developments, any of these new homes, nobody has a half an acre. So it's basically kind of restricting. I mean, if we're going to do this,
Well, see, we discussed this, and there was concern that a quarter acre is too small.
right.
So, you know, I'm trying to come up with a happy medium here, and I think there was also settlement that a half acre is a reasonable amount of space. So, you know, if we go back to where we say, well, why not a quarter acre, then it's all a moot point, and I did not agree with, as well as other council members, of a smaller patch of land was acceptable. And I talked to other citizens who felt the same way, that it's too small. There's a lot that told me a half acre is too small. But, so that was where we came up with the half acre as a reasonable starting point. As far as these developments, you know, people, yeah, they might have a quarter acre, but they bought there for a good reason.
Right.
Because they didn't want a lot of land that they had to mow every week.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want a lot of weeding, and they didn't want to live with animals, so,
Right.
other than a dog or a cat. So that's where we came up with a half acre as a reasonable. Now, if it's something that's just shy of a half acre, there again, then it would have to be a variance, and you apply for a variance. A variance is like $250 fee, and it has to be advertised. So, and then they'd still, that's separate, so then they'd still have to go to the neighbors and apply for the provisional. If, you know, one was approved by the council, they still then would have to pay a fee. Now, the typical fee for a provisional is $150 for provisional use. I'm thinking of something more like $100, but there has to be some kind of a fee to cover administrative costs, and if there's any advertisements or anything that need to be made, you know, so there has to be something, so the city's not just handing out paper.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to do the administrative part of it. So that was where I come up with the half acre, and, you know, I'd love to include everybody, and I think that the council would like to make everybody happy, but we all know that that's impossible. So it's an offering that I think is very reasonable, and that's why I put it together.
There's no way a quarter acre would work anyway, because a minimum fence space is a quarter acre in some cases, and you can meet setbacks, and, I mean, that's not possible with this ordinance. So, but The only other thing I had was, I think that, I'm not sure, I think there might be a typo on section 5. And then I guess it's 5E, the last sentence. So, we shall sell, is that supposed to just be the sell of?
Yeah, I believe so. I'll make that change right now.
The last sentence. I think that's just supposed to be the sell, is to be shall sell.
Yeah, the sale of animals or animal products, including but not limited to meat and or manure, shall be prohibited.
What about people that have chickens now? Are they all, everybody that has them, will they have to be required to come in, fill out an application, do all that thing?
We have right now in the UDC, if it is manufactured housing with a 1 acre plus, it has to be 1 acre clear, so it can't count your house, or the rural residential with 1 acre clear, they have been, and always have been, at least back to 2007, been allowed to have them. So this ordinance is an exception to the rule. The rule has been in place since 2007. And so if they're in one of those two zones, they've always been allowed to have up to 12 birds. And then depending on their acreage, and if they have 5 acres, then they need 1 acre clear for 12 chickens, and if they had a goat, they have to, this says, and that would be other acreage. But if they have 1 acre clear in either of those two zones, they've always been allowed to have them. So if they're less than that, they've basically been breaking the ordinance all this time, and yes, they would have to apply.
Now, who's going to police this?
Well, part of it is the ordinance itself. We know who has them and where they're at.
Okay.
But if they apply and they qualify for 6 hens, and then there's complaints from the neighbors because it's loud or whatever, at that point, it would give the city the ability for code enforcement to investigate, and they say, well, we have 18 now. Well, at that point, I think it would be this provisional would be revoked because they broke the rule with it. So hopefully I answered your question on that. Any other questions? Okay. Well, y'all consider it and take into consideration if you talk to anyone about it. We'll move from there. Everyone got a updated report with some pictures from the library and some of their activities. Hopefully you had an opportunity to look through those. Next on the agenda is Georgia City's week is in October, the week of October 3 through the 9th. We've done this in past years, and it just basically would give the mayor the ability to sign saying, yes, we will participate in the city's week, and I think there was something put in everybody's packet that has to do with that. That's something then will be put on the agenda for signatures on the 17th, I believe it will be. So really nothing different than what has been done in the past. It just says that yes, we support all the other cities in the Georgia Cities Week. Then they send us some flyers and a few things that we put up front for people to see. So at this point, we have citizen input. Anyone sign up to? Okay. And last thing on the agenda then would be minutes approval for July 20th. We have the draft minutes, and this would be for July 2021.
Mayor,
Yes.
just to go with all that, I have a question.
Okay.
I had a letter from GMA about the convention that's going to be this year in Savannah. It's going to be first week in August.
Mhm.
Did you not get a notice about that?
I did, and because of the budget and all the restraints, even I decided I'm not going. So, I think, we struggled through this budget and trying to come up with all of the different constraints, trying to stay within the budget. I didn't feel that it was prudent to turn around and spend citizens' money to go to a convention, although there were some classes that I could have benefited from, but I figured we could visit that again next week, or next year, I'm sorry. But I was aware of it, and I do appreciate you asking about it, but that was why I did not put that out. Any other questions on that? Okay. So if y'all had an opportunity to read through the minutes for July 20, is there any questions, concern, or corrections? No questions? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for July 20, 2021?
Motion to approve July 2021 minutes is written.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carried. And then the last would be, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Still wrong.
Is that me or you? That's you. Going into overload there.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?